So basically Gen Z and younger will never retire? If inflation continues at an average 3.2% rate for 40 years, 1 million will only be worth $283K. Even if you manage to be in the 3% who are able to save 4 million for retirement, it'd only be worth 1 million, and your reward for maxing an IRA and 401k for your entire career is barely being off the street. Lol. Is America doomed? This is all assuming Social Security even still exists by that point. I feel like mass poverty and homelessness is in the near future. If you don't inherit a house, it appears you won't have one. Most millennials won't ever retire either. Add this Gen Xer to that list. I see no retirement in my future. I mean, we're coming to a crash of some kind. Things can't continue as they are. I am 30 and see no hope for me. I will work and struggle until I die. Unfettered capitalism has us hurtling face first into the purge, unless the billionaire class gets some limits put on them. We'll be looking at Soylent Green, Hunger Games. https preview.red.it/p5hp94t0k9ic1.jpg. Width equals 1284 and format equals PJPG and auto equals WebP and S equals AF8FB4851472B8274D0 ed 73F2E7C6BF2ECE 2458. For reference. I've never thought about retiring. I honestly hope to be dead by 62. Like both of my parents. I actually think I'm relatively happier than the vast majority of people. Which is why I don't get all hung up on some fantasy that likely won't come to fruition 30 years from now anyway. We think about tomorrow because we are miserable today. And the more we think about tomorrow, the more miserable today becomes. How is the promise of a shiny retirement much different than the promise of heaven that was used to control the masses for thousands of years? You'll go to heaven if you're good and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior versus you'll get to retire if you bust your ass and ruin your relationships working 50 hours a week and accept money as the only thing that matters in life. The more you worry about it, the more control capitalism has over you. Gen X here, will never retire. The whole idea is about cost of living versus wage growth. You can't just look at inflation by itself. Inflation is a function of wage growth in the first place. That's the main inflationary pressure because you can't charge more for something if people can't pay more. Greedflation and other factors add to inflation as well. But the core relationship is between wage growth and inflation. https preview.red.it/5G043M2Q6A1.jpg. Width equals 640 and format equals PJPG and auto equals WebP and S equals 61CC21E4972F4A9A2B9B 4766321B9D52 Candelas 2E726. The reason why things feel so bad now is because wage growth has been so low that it doesn't overtake inflation over the last 40 years. Non-inflation adjusted wage growth during that time is always between 2 and 4%. Have you ever tried to negotiate a 5% raise in America? Owners would rather set the building on fire for insurance money than give someone a deserved 5% raise. But prior to the 1980s, non-adjusted wage growth would be 4, 6, 8% at times, and you also had women entering the workforce, increasing household income much faster than inflation rose. That's what we should be thinking of as the economic goal in general of public policy, is to get wages to grow faster than inflation. Full stop. But politicians get yelled at by economists and people working on behalf of the rich that wage growth automatically will cause inflation. Larry Summers, during the big inflation surge that he correctly predicted, used his newfound authority to go around telling people you can't have wage growth of 5% or more without triggering inflation surges that wipe out the gains. That is the central economic problem that policy should be trying to solve by stopping corporations from using market concentration to raise prices, blocking stock buybacks, capping executive pay while raising minimum wage, etc. If you can solve that puzzle, then younger generations will be fine with 24% inflation per year, which is better for managing the economy than having lower inflation than that anyways. Millennials won't either. We've got long working lives ahead of us, during which a lot can happen. What I can tell you now, though, is that looking at raw inflation estimates isn't necessarily the best indicator of your chance to retire. You don't have $1 million sitting still in the bank. You have a small percentage of your paycheck going into a stock-heavy 401k, hopefully with employer matching. Money invested in that fashion has historically outperformed inflation significantly, so that by the time you make a withdrawal, you'll have several times the value you put in, even after accounting for inflation. Whether that is enough to retire on is an open question, but inflation does not hold meaningful blame for that. At least not on its own. Millennial, I have like $2,000 in my 401k, tears of joy. Boomers, Gen X, and millennials won't be the ones fighting in the climate wars. The market usually outperforms inflation. Basically PPL. With what small amount of voting power PPL have, which isn't much, in the owner class, will totally squander the futures of everyone. That's what they always have done, and honestly the system's so corrupt it will always be filled with these ancient dinosaurs that are entirely profit-driven even in their last years. 80-plus-year-olds. As of now it currently looks like Donald Trump will be the nominee, and he doesn't even have a platform that addresses any problem. It's just like idiotic demagoguery, which that will continue for the remainder of our short lives. I'm not sure why you're predicting 3.2% inflation for the next 40 years. The Fed's target rate is 2%, just like it has been for decades. Inflation spiked up during the pandemic and has been slowly coming back down. We're not going to see deflation though, so prices will stay high. Not like your money is just sitting there. It's invested, averaging 610% per year. Correct. It's not looking great, lol. Retirement? Not with my medical debt. I'm 45 and have known for years now that I'll probably not get to retire. I think my parents' generation might be the last one to get that luxury.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.